Want me to start? You want to start?
Yes, please, Ian.
Okay, I'll just start then. Hello everybody and welcome to the Russell and Russell Meet the Expert event. I'm delighted this morning to be joined with Kyle Murtaugh from Confidence by Design, the award-winning and author of 5 Pillars of Effective Public Speaking. Kyle's going to be talking to us today, and if anybody's got any questions throughout, just please either put a post on the chat or just stop Kyle, and I believe it's going to be interactive anyway, so Kyle will probably take any questions you have at that time. So without any further ado, it's my delight to pass over to Kyle Murtaugh.
Excellent. Cheers, Ian. First thing I'm going to do is I'd love to ask you a question, and in order to do that, I'm going to need to see some faces. So if it's possible, could you turn on your camera, please? I mean, I love looking at Ian. I love Hugh, Scott. We've got very handsome men here, but I'd love to see more if possible. That would be phenomenal. Okay. Roughly about 2 people turned on. I love that. Okay. So here's my question. Do you enjoy presenting online? If you do, raise your hand for me. Okay, Hugh, okay. Do you not enjoy presenting online? Raise your hand if that's the case. Okay, quite a number more. Yeah, so for me, the first time I presented online was on April 1st, just after everything went crazy. And I was in that camp as well. I did not know anything about this, so I certainly did not enjoy the idea of presenting online. I was just concerned about so many different things, from the internet packing into a Zoom bomber invading and doing whatever Zoom bombers do. I've never seen one. I don't think I want to. But one thing that's really concerned me was whether I would be able to have an impact on my audience when I'm not in the same room as them. Now, since that point, I've delivered probably over 100 of these virtual presentations. And what I can tell you is the internet fear and the Zoom bomber fear will always be there. But that other one, whether you can have an impact, will go away, because you can. In fact, you can have a larger impact than you ever could speaking in person, for the simple reason that you can reach more people than you ever could before. And the reality of the situation is this is here to stay. This, I believe, will be the future of presenting. It's all going to be online. So we need to learn how to own the virtual stage. So what I want to do for the next 20 minutes or so is talk to you about some skills and techniques you can use to do just that for your future presentations, for your business or your company. And I believe there's really 3 things you need to consider deeply when presenting online. Number 1 is your setup. Your setup's your first impression. You've got to make that count. Number 2 is you. Ultimately, it's up to you in terms of how you present to earn the audience's attention. And then number 3 is actually your audience. You need to think about things from their perspective. So that's what we're going to work through today. Now, I do want this session to be interactive, so feel free to ask me questions during it. I'll be asking you questions, and I would love it if you could give me a response, because ultimately, the more you put into this today, the more you will get out of it. Does that sound fair enough? Give me a nod if it does. Again, 1 person nodding. I love this. I love the enthusiasm, guys. Love it. All right, let's get started then. So the setup. What I want to talk to you specifically here about is your camera position. Now, let me flat out ask you, where do you think your camera should be positioned when you're speaking online? Someone unmute and give me their thoughts, please.
Pointing at yourself.
Okay, well, we definitely want it pointing at you, not away from you. That's a good start, absolutely. But do we want it below us? Do we want it above us? Do we want it level with us? What do you think? Scott, you're
level?
touching that beard there. I feel like you've got the answer, my friend.
Head height 2 feet away.
Head height. I love the specifics. Wow, that's fantastic. Yes, we do want it head height. More specifically, we want it in line with our eyes, because we see a lot of this online, right? We've seen a lot of ceilings on Zoom, haven't we? And this is not a great look either, because number 1, you can maybe see up my nose, which is never good. And then number 2, it creates a weird power dynamic. I'm looking down at you right now, which has got odd connotations. But likewise, I don't want it too high because now I'm down here sort of begging for your approval. Instead, where we want it is right in the center, eye line with you so that you're simulating a conversation. That is key. And this moves me on to the second thing, which is probably the biggest mistake people make on Zoom, and it's about eye contact, right? And by having your camera in that position, you're much more likely to make eye contact. Because what do you think? I'll ask you again. What do you think is the biggest mistake people make in terms of eye contact on Zoom? Someone unmute and tell me.
I would imagine it's doing this, looking this way at a second screen, something like that.
It can be, yes, looking at a second screen, but probably looking at their first screen, doing this, right? Because now you can see I'm not actually making eye contact with you. From my perspective, I'm looking at you, but I'm not from your perspective. So you've always got to think about the audience, and that means making eye contact with the lens of your camera. But of course, you want to look at the screen because that's where all the information is, so I get it. But there are things you can do to train yourself to look up. One thing you could do, and I think I should have one nearby, is you could take a little yellow sticky, draw a smiley face on it, and stick that above your camera. It will remind you to look up there. I've seen other people put family photos behind their camera, pictures of friends, pictures of their favorite celebrity. I saw one lady had a picture of Gerard Butler behind her camera. Topless. I'm not here to judge you. You do whatever you want to do. Just something that draws your attention because you need to be making eye contact with the lens. That's how you make a connection with your audience at the end of the day. Does that make sense, what I've said there? Quite clear?
Yeah.
All right, great. I love how this is a two-way dialogue, Ian. I think we should can have a podcast after, perhaps. All right, let's move on to the second thing. And that's what you can actually do when you're presenting online. And when I was first thinking about this, when I was first doing my initial webinars, I was always asking myself, how does it look from the audience's perspective? And the reality is, your audience is looking at a box. They're looking at a window, a screen, okay? That's what they see, whether it be on a phone or a laptop. It is a window that they are looking at. And I realized from watching other people and watching recordings of myself back for improvement, that the more this window is still, the more it's not active, the more I become a talking head, the less engaging the presentation becomes. So the key thing you must look to do when you're presenting online is to keep this square window active. You need to keep it as active as possible. Now, one thing you can do to keep it active, and you probably know this already, is you could use slides, okay? You could use slides. However, what most people tend to do with a slide is they show a slide and then they stay on that slide for a very long time. Now, what do you think the problem with that would be? Hugh, I'm going to come to you. What do you think?
Boredom.
Boredom,
People
right.
can read
Why do
it.
you think that's boring?
Well, people read it very quickly and then they wonder what on earth is going to come next.
Exactly. They read it, they're done with it, but it's still there, isn't it? People, presenters, they just leave it on there. What we need to look to do instead is show the slide and then come out of the slideshow and speak more about the topic. You never want to stay on a still static slide because ultimately you are far more engaging than a slide ever will be. So yes, you can use PowerPoint now and again to show nice images, show nice graphics that you found on Google Images, but make sure you hop out so that you are effectively the star of the show because you are more interesting. The other thing you can do is you can use props, okay? You can use props to keep the screen active. Now, what could this look like? Well, if you're talking about something, it's better to show it rather than tell, okay? So I showed you the smiley face. That was more effective than telling you about the smiley face. So what I'm asking, is there something when you're presenting that you're talking about that you could show? Could you show a diagram? Could you show, a phone? Could you show a book? Whatever you're talking about, could you show it rather than talk about it? The other thing, of course, you could use as a prop is a whiteboard or a flip chart, okay? Flip charts are not out of the question here. If you have a camera which is of high enough quality, you could have a flip chart behind you and you could write on that. It makes it a little bit more interactive, a little bit more engaging as well. There's lots of things you could do in terms of props to keep your window active. But the best thing I think you should do, and everybody should be striving to do this when they present, is you should look to use the physical space. Use the physical space. Now, what do you think I mean by that? I'm talking about body language, of course. How do you think we could use our body language when presenting online? And I'm going to come to you. Any ideas at all?
I have absolutely no idea. I was just thinking that there.
Not a clue.
But well, I was thinking when you were talking there about normally when you're presenting, I would be standing up and I would be addressing the audience more, whereas when I'm here, I'm sort of sitting very static and looking. And so I don't know the answer, but that was what was going through my head. What's the difference between when I'm standing up and I'm usually quite active presenting and being able to engage the audience, whereas I don't here, I just kind of sit into a screen. So it's quite interesting to think about.
Yeah, well, I think you're along the right lines, because one thing we can certainly do is stand up. If you've got the means, then you could stand up while you're presenting. Obviously, you have to get your camera high enough. So maybe it's getting a bunch of shoe boxes and piling them up like a Jenga tower. But if you do that, the benefit, there's a lot of payoff. Because when you're standing, and Anne alluded to it here, you're so much more free. You're not confined to a chair in one still static place. You can move around a little bit. Your breathing will be better. You'll have more energy as a result. So standing is certainly an option. If you want to sit down, that's fine, but think about using your hands more. Think about gesturing to keep the screen active. That's a simple thing you can do. You've got your facial expressions as well. Let's not present with a blank emotional face. Let's have a little bit of passion in our presentations. Be expressive if you want to have an impact on your audience. So those are just a few ideas for in terms of keeping this screen active. You've got your slides, you've got your props, and you've got the use of the physical space as well. Now, the last key I wanted to talk to you about today was the audience, okay? You need to think about your audience. And the thing is, with presenting online, it's very different to in person. Because when you were speaking in person, there was almost an expectation on the audience to listen to you. You know, it's polite. But when we're presenting online, there is no expectation at all. There's literally so many distractions in your audience's environment that you are competing with. You're competing with other tabs on their screen. You're competing with text coming in, social media alerts. You're competing with dogs and kids running around. Probably the dogs more than the kids, I would imagine, I hope. And you've also got the fridge over there too, of course, you know, getting a tasty snack. There's so many things going on that we have to compete with. And that means the only way to truly have your audience's attention from start to finish is to get them involved in the presentation, to physically get them involved. Now, how could we get our audience involved in the presentation? George, could I come to you? Have you got any ideas on this?
Just doing what you're doing just now, which is asking questions and getting people to think and respond.
Yep, so that's a simple one, asking questions, getting people to think, getting them to respond. Any other tools we could use? Anyone got ideas?
You know, there's use the poll function, the survey.
Yes, the opinion poll, not any other form of poll, Scott. Yes, absolutely. We can use that in our presentations to get surveys done, get people thinking about our topics, 100%. What other tools have we got? Come on, we're getting a roll here. I can wait longer than you know.
Interject some humor.
Yes, you can interject some humor, but we've also got things like breakout rooms, yeah? We could use breakout rooms to put people in a different place, have a discussion with another group member and then come back. We've also got the opportunity where we can get other people to speak. We could give people time to speak for, you know, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and just hearing a different voice adds to that engagement as well. There's lots of different ways you can interact with your audience. And of course, depending on the size, some will work and some will not, but you've got to judge that. For example, getting people to unmute and speak probably would not work great if I was in a call with 500 people. But because we're in a call with 17, it does work. So you have to evaluate that when you're using these forms of interaction. But the key thing is you must interact. Otherwise, the other distractions, they'll just be too much for your audience. So interact if you want to have an impact. Okay, so those were 3 things I've covered there. I've talked about your setup with your camera. I've also spoke to you about keeping the window as active as possible and then interacting with your audience. What I'd love to use the next 7 minutes for is any questions. If you've got any questions at all about whether it's presenting online, public speaking, I'd love to answer them now, and then I'll sort of wrap things up with a wee conclusion. So if anyone's got any questions.
Yeah, I've got a question. I like what you were saying there about getting the audience to interact and sort of putting a question to them for them to do it. What do you do when you sort of say, so what we tend to do, I work in the bank, we run an accelerator, so we do lots of online events, you know, at least a couple of times a week. And very often at the start, we'll get entrepreneurs to share good news, practice their pitch, whatever. And, you know, this last year, everybody was like volunteering, oh yeah, I'll do it. And now you can sit and you can say, okay, who's got some good news that they want to share this week, or who wants to tell us, you know, what's worked well for them? And no one volunteers. I tend to then pick on people that I know that will be comfortable, but then that gets to a point, because it's a similar group of people all the time, you don't want them to think you're always picking on them. And then the others think, I don't have to bother. How do you get others within the group to actually open up and have a voice to contribute to the conversation?
For sure. It can be tough, you know, especially in tough times like these. And if people are shy, then they tend to stay away from interacting. So totally get where you're coming from, Janice. What I would say is it might be useful before you ask that question where people have to talk in front of everyone. Maybe it would be better if you could split them up into a group of pairs at first and have a discussion with 2 people, you know, a little back and forth discussing what is going good right now. So then when you bring the whole group back in, you can kind of go to the pairs and get an answer from each of them. They might feel a little bit more comfortable when they first discussed something and had it validated by another person before they speak about it in the big group. So that's certainly an option I would suggest. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it definitely does.
Good, excellent.
Kyle, do you find that the bigger the audience, then the less interaction there is? People, if you're a very large audience, people tend to be fearful of asking questions or saying anything. But when you get a smaller group, you get more questions. What's your experience on that?
So I've done quite a few big audiences. Probably the biggest is about 120 people. What I find actually is people interact more, but I think that's just because there's so many people. Because if you think about it, right, if you've got a lot more people, there's far more opportunity for each person to want to interact, right? They literally might all have a thought in their head that they want to say. So you're more likely to find those who are a bit more outspoken in larger groups than smaller groups. The difficulty is managing it. Because if you get 100 responses coming at you all at once, it's just going to be absolute chaos. So you've got to manage that correctly for using functions like the chat if it is a big group like that. But I find they're more likely to interact if there's more people than less, is what I would say, Ian.
Yeah.
If you're hosting an event where you don't necessarily want people to interact, because you kind of want them to be all quiet and you're just talking at them, presenting something or showing them something, would an event that's pre-recorded, would you recommend that more than going out completely live, just in case you, and with the pre-recorded event, you can kind of make sure that you're okay? Or do you think it kind of loses its appeal?
What's the topic that you're covering, Elsa? Have I said your name right there, by the way? Is it Elsa? Is that how you pronounce it?
Isla.
Isla, sorry.
But don't worry, everyone always gets it wrong.
Isla, tell me a little bit more about the kind of topic, if you don't mind.
So it would be like a product demo, essentially. So it's something that you want people to feel like they're kind of part of a community. We're sending out a special link, so you can only be part of it if you've signed up to the mailing list. So it needs to be a little bit professional, but at the same time, we want it to feel quite natural. So I'm just thinking about whether to pre-record it or have it completely live.
Okay, and how long is the demonstration, Isla?
Not decided yet.
Okay, well, that's going to be a big factor in it, right? If it's an hour-long demonstration where people just listening to you, then I would say maybe better to pre-record it and then post it out in your own time. But if it's something short and snappy within, I don't know, 30 minutes or so, and you want to create that buzz and that excitement of the first reveal, then I think a live event would be great. So it really depends on the time that you're gonna make it, is what I would say. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Any other questions?
Maybe 2 more questions, and we can wrap it up.
No?
No? Okay then. Okay, well that's fine with me. No problem at all. If you do have any questions, then feel free to email me later on. My email address is kyle@confidencebydesign.co.uk. I think Rosalind will post it out after this event anyway, so don't worry, you don't even have to write it down. And I hope you can take on board these skills and begin to implement them into your presentations, and maybe even help your teams if applicable as well. Now, one thing I am looking to do this year is work with more organizations that want to really embrace the virtual stage, as you will, because like I said, this is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. Even after coronavirus, this still will be a regular thing, presenting on Zoom. So we need to quickly upskill ourselves in this day and age. So if you're interested in that, or if you think your colleagues would be interested, it'd be great to have a one-to-one sometime, a chat, and get to know more about you and your business. But above all, what I'd love you to do is focus on one of those things I said, whether it be making eye contact with the camera, positioning the camera correctly, or using more props, or keeping the space more active, or even just interacting a little bit more with your audience. Focus on one thing after this presentation, and then slowly but surely build up until you're incorporating all 3. And then at that point, you'll get closer and closer to owning the virtual stage. Ian, I'm going to pass it back to you, my friend.
Thank you very much, Kyle. That was excellent. Thanks. That was really, really interesting. And to finish it off, I'd like to thank Kyle very much for his time today. And but I would also urge you to go to his website. I had a look at his website, Confidence by Design, and there's a number of YouTube videos, links as well. There's short, very, very short videos, I have to say, which is good, because again, it's the attention span, I suppose. And I would definitely recommend that you have a look at the various YouTube videos and the website. So I'd really just again like to thank Kyle for today's presentation. It was really interesting. Thank you, Kyle. Okay, thanks everybody for coming on today, and it's great to see you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Kyle, before you disappear, can I ask you a question?
Of course you can.